All right, let's get into this mock draft because everything's changed. I wanted to do this right now because we got that flurry of activity, obviously, with NFL free agency over the course of the last week, and everything has changed. So we take our first mock draft and we crumple it up and we throw it away. And then here's mock draft number 2.0 here with the Joel Klatt mock draft. And we start with the Bears. So the Bears obviously trade away Justin Fields. And I saw the Ian Rappaport reported that they basically did him a solid, and he had choices of where he wanted to go. He chose Pittsburgh. It doesn't listen. When we all saw the trade, it's like, that's interesting after the Russell Wilson signing. And yet, if he wants to go there, and from his perspective, after the way that Russell played last year, he's got to think this might be one of the best chances for him to get on the field soon. So, listen. That is not what we're discussing, but I found it interesting last week. But it leaves the Bears with the number 1 pick. And that's going Caleb Williams. This is now all but solidified. This is done. He's a generational player. There's no doubt about it. I've talked about it ever since the fall. I've talked about it in this process, and I'll talk about it again. And you think about the 5 categories that you evaluate players: arm talent, the ability to control the game from the pocket, the ability to create, are they accurate? Can they create with their legs? All of these different categories, he excels at all of them. And he's one of the only ones that does. You can evaluate hundreds, if not thousands of quarterbacks. And generally speaking, the best ones will be great at 4 and really subpar in the 5th. He's excellent at all 5. That's why he's a generational talent. That's why he's going to go number 1 to the Chicago Bears. More on that in a little bit. Commanders are up at 2. And this is what gets interesting because they traded away Sam Howell to the Seahawks. And now there's all of this talk, at least, that the Vikings are gaining up the ammunition in order to go and move up into the top 3. And people are like, well, maybe it's Washington. The Vikings could make a run in the top 3 now that they have those 2 first-round picks. But let's take this from Washington's perspective and even New England's perspective, because this is going to apply to the 2nd and to the 3rd pick. They don't have a quarterback. Neither of those teams have an option. This is not like they're trying to move away from a veteran or something else. They do not have an option. They have to select a quarterback. And the way that this draft is shaping up, if you trade back there with the Vikings, maybe you'll get the 4th guy, maybe. And that's being generous. And I don't think that that's probably actually going to take place because it looks like McCarthy is really slotting himself into that 4th spot, I would say, with Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels in the 2 and 3 spot. So from my seat, I don't see why Washington or New England, for that matter, would trade away the 2nd or the 3rd pick with Minnesota in order to remove yourself out of this sweepstakes for the top 4. Now you're going to be hoping that Bo Nix is available or Michael Penix is available. I just don't see it. So as much as the Vikings are generating some headlines, I think that Washington selects, and my selection for them is Drake Maye. I know that there are some out there that are interested in taking shots at Drake Maye or tearing him down. And I understand. It's not the cleanest film that you're ever going to watch, but man, if you watch his film and you can't see the top end potential, then you're biased and crazy. The guy is, outside of Caleb, the highest potential quarterback in the draft. And there's no questions about that. There's other really good options at quarterback, but not high-end potential. If Caleb Williams is a generational player, Drake Maye is a bona fide number 1 selection almost every other year, except for when Caleb Williams is in the draft. Now, he's getting picked apart a little bit, and that's part of the process. Guys are going to get picked apart. CJ Stroud got picked apart last year. Drake Maye, top end potential wise, makes throws other guys just can't. Just can't. As soon as he walks into the league, he is a top 5 potential quarterback in the National Football League. And I'm talking about the throws that he can make, the off-schedule plays that he can make, off-platform throws he can make with velocity, athleticism, pace, the tempo to those throws, all of those things. Throwing out a ton of scouting terms to basically say, like, guys, Drake Maye is really good. Patriots, I think that because of all the reasons I just talked about with the Commanders, of them not having an option to drop back and be sure about what they're going to do with the quarterback, I think this is Jayden Daniels all day long. They desperately need a quarterback. They already traded away Mac Jones. He was their first rounder in 2021. They have, Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi? That's not going to do it, right? They, of all people, know that you've got to elevate at that position in order to win. You do not win the Super Bowl with average quarterback play. You just don't. All right, the Broncos were the last team to do that in Super Bowl 50, and they had an insane defense. And they also, by the way, got New England at home that year. They also had Peyton Manning, right? And I mean, it's still Peyton Manning. Now, was he playing great? No. But his mind alone made him a top half of the league quarterback even that year. So I think the Patriots take Jayden Daniels there from LSU. I love Jayden Daniels. I think he's a really good player. I can't wait to see what he does at the next level. Cardinals here. Now, they could be a spot for the Vikings, but if you're the Cardinals, you don't need to do that. And why? Other than Caleb Williams, there are other generational players at their position in this draft. It's for me, at least, what makes this draft so intriguing. Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of those players. Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of the best college football players I've covered in my career. He made plays that other guys can't even dream of making. He is a hard worker. He is a selfless player. Now, was his film against Michigan his best film this last year? No, it wasn't. In fact, I would argue it's probably his worst film, and I've watched all of it. The interception that was thrown by Kyle McCord was 98.5% Marvin Harrison Jr.'s fault. And that's one of the first plays of his career where I was like, yikes. And it just so happened that it was in the wrong game and in particular at the wrong time. But that doesn't mean that you don't select him at the fourth spot. And I think that the Cardinals do that. He's the best receiver in the draft. Kyler needs a weapon out there. And then now we get into some interesting aspects of this draft. So here we go. Now the Chargers are up at 5. And this is where it gets juicy because the Chargers are clearly right now in a mode with Jim Harbaugh where they're trying to cut some costs. They're trying to get into a little bit of a, you could say, rebuild mode. They trade away Keenan Allen, released Mike Williams. They restructured Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. They're in cost-cutting mode. They're in building mode. And what do we know about Jim Harbaugh? Jim Harbaugh wins a specific type of way. He's done it ever since he was at, for those of you that don't know, San Diego, then Stanford, then the 49ers, then Michigan. Jim Harbaugh's team always have his fingerprint all over that team. So I think this is the spot where it's like, I would rather have the assets than the 5th pick in the draft. So I think the Chargers are the best spot for the Vikings to jump up and start thinking about their quarterback. Now, could they grab Odunze? Could they grab Neighbors? Yes, there's no doubt. And that might be what they do, but Jim Harbaugh has never been a wide receiver-centric team. He has never been that way. What makes you think he's going to be that way moving forward? You could say like, well, you go get Justin Herbert a wide receiver. That's not how Jim Harbaugh wins. That's just not. He had J.J. McCarthy, was a 5-star player, and guess what he asked him to do? Hand it off 32 times against Penn State, right? And granted, did he ask him to do that? No, he was in a hotel room suspended. But you get the picture. That's the blueprint of the way that he wants to build things, and I think that's going to be the way that he wants to build things with the Chargers. So this is where the Vikings trade up. I think that they give up the 11th and the 23rd, and they move up right here, and now they're number 5, and they select J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy's getting a lot of buzz, and he should. He's really talented, and for intents and purposes, didn't get to show that much at Michigan. I think that this guy is as talented as anyone outside of Caleb and Drake in the draft. Like, he makes every single throw. He hurts defenses with his feet. I saw him get better and better from the pocket the older he got, the more time he got on the field. He was very raw early. And the more he played and the more reps that he took, he got better and better and better. And by the end, he could control the game from the pocket. Now, they didn't ask him to do that. a ton, which is fine. So he's going to need some time. I think he's still green and he's going to need some time, but I think Minnesota goes and takes JJ McCarthy. Cousins is gone. They've got to get a QB to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. It's got to happen. So they're going to take a run, and I think their run lands them at 5, and they take JJ McCarthy. Now the Giants at 6. I still like Odunze there. New York made a big splash on the defensive side. They traded for Brian Burns from Carolina, so now he's paired up with Kayvon Thibodeau. But they lose Saquon Barkley, and now you've got to at least try to have some semblance of offensive firepower. Daniel Jones, is he an elite playmaker? Probably not. So you got to give him someone that can go get it. That's Rome Odunze. So Odunze at number 6 to the Giants. At 7, the Titans, I struggle with this one, and they have a hole at left tackle after releasing Andre Dillard. So for me, Joe Alt is my best offensive lineman. I think Joe Alt fits with Tennessee. So Joe Alt from Notre Dame, there he is, 7 to the Titans. Now the Falcons are up at 8. So they bring in Kirk Cousins. Now they can address the defense because offensively, they're pretty set. They've got the weapons there. So now you start looking at this board and you're like, hold on. You can take the best defensive player available in the draft at 8. That's a huge win for the Falcons. And I think Dallas Turner is that player, and I think Dallas Turner fits. He's an elite edge athlete. I mean, elite. Look at what he did at the Combine. Look at the way he produced on the field. It's one thing to produce in one of those areas and struggle in the other. We've seen guys produce and have sack numbers and test terrible. We've seen guys test off the charts, and there's no production that they can show you on the field. He's got both. Over 20 sacks the last couple of years, and he was a testing absolute phenom in the Combine. They need someone that can challenge the QB. That's Dallas Turner. Now the Bears are up with their second pick here in the top 10. And listen, the Bears could trade away, but think about what they've done here over the last couple of weeks. This is what I love about the Bears. Now you could say, I don't love what they got for Justin Fields. All right, that's fair, but I do think that they were trying to do him a solid. And you look up and you're going to have Caleb Williams. You've got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift. He was 5th in the league in rushing last year. Cole Kmet, Darnell Wright, first round pick last year at tackle. Now you got something, right? Like you're starting to look at this offense. You're like, okay, hold on. We've got something. And now you got to think that like you can get another tackle. You've got some skill on the outside. And now Caleb Williams is not going to be forced into the position that Justin Fields was forced into when he had to play with a subpar offense. I think you go tackle and solidify the other side. Why not go with Olu Fashanu? Reunite Fashanu with Caleb Williams. They played high school football together at Gonzaga in Washington, D.C. I like this pick. I think Fashanu is a hell of a player. And he's just getting better because he was still a little bit raw, had his best year in college without a doubt this last year. And man, this guy, he's got all pro written all over him, at least in my book. I think that he's an excellent player, and I like that reuniting him. So now you got Williams, Swift, Moore, Allen, Kmet, Fashanu, Wright. And now in the span of a few weeks, the Bears have gone from what are the Bears doing to, okay, you have used the assets that you have to better your team. And could they take Neighbors? Yes, they could absolutely take Malik Neighbors. In my mind, do you really need Neighbors if you already have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen when you could then solidify the other side of the offensive line with Darnell Wright and then Olu Fashanu? I like that better, which leaves Malik Neighbors on the board. And this is what gets wild here is because, listen, you can go through this and you're like, all of this makes sense, at least in my head. And now the Jets are like, please, Malik Neighbors, be there at number 10. They signed Tyron Smith to protect Aaron Rodgers so they don't have to go O-line. That's a blindside protector right there. I think this would be an absolute home run for the Jets when you really think about it, because outside of Garrett Wilson, I don't think their skill position players really scare you. But if you pair Garrett Wilson with Malik Neighbors, You've got Tyron Smith. You've got Aaron Rodgers back. Bam, you're one of the best offenses in the league, much less the AFC right away. I love Breece Hall out of the backfield. Now you've got Wilson, Hall, Malik Neighbors, all young guys. You've got Aaron Rodgers back and healthy, Tyron Smith to protect him. And the Jets are in business right there with Malik Neighbors. I think that would raise a lot of eyebrows. If we're in Detroit and Neighbors goes to the Jets, everyone's like, whew, okay, that'll be for real. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. And you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.